Hi, this is the Moon-Based Podcast. I'm Moon Rider, or Moon_RYDR. And today we're going to talk about deep dungeons in Final Fantasy XIV. There are currently 3 that are released. Palace of the Dead, which you get access to even on the free trial in A Realm Reborn. There's Heaven on High, which you get in Stormblood, which is the second expansion for Final Fantasy XIV. And the third is Eureka Orthos, which you unlock after, I believe, finishing 6.0 in the Endwalker story. I'm very passionate about deep dungeons, and I wanted to give some advice to people as I'm currently going for the Necromancer title, which is soloing all content in Palace of the Dead from starting at floor 1 through 200 in what's essentially 4-person content. And I wanted to give some tips for those going on Machinist and Warrior builds, but this is also general deep dungeon advice that can help you through your soloing of Heaven on High floors 1 through 100, as well as Eureka Orthos through 1 through 100. The first is to get used to each of the floor maps, each of the floor series. The way that these deep dungeons are divided are in sets of floors that are 10 floor chunks, followed usually by a boss on the last floor. And then you can either leave the instance or continue on to the next floor set. Deep dungeon runs for Necromancer for Palace of the Dead last from 14 to 16 hours. For Heaven on High, they're 8 to 9 hours apiece, and it's similar for Eureka Orthos. But in getting acquainted with all of the monsters on each floor and the bosses, I suggest going through it in groups initially. This will do 2 things. One, it'll acquaint you with the floor set, the aesthetic of each floor, so you're not surprised when Heaven on High switches aesthetics from floors 80 to 100 as a castle setting, for example, or the more open Palace of the Dead setting from floor 170 to 200. And the second is it gets you used to the monster types. It increases your Aether pool, so you'll be more prepared when you do solo attempts later. And it gives you positive experiences of clearing floors and clearing the bosses so that you know what it feels like when a certain attack hits you or something along those lines. With that being said, after running in a group setting, getting plus 99 on your arms and armor Aether pool, I would buy all the items you want to with the pot shards that you'll collect in either Palace of the Dead or Heaven on High. And then after you get all the items, you can save up on potions. And I like to save up about 1,000 potions. And then I also have in my retainers other pot shards that I've collected. So you're going to want to be very secure with the map knowledge, the monster knowledge, loaded up on items and potions that you can heal yourself with before doing solo attempts. If you do solo attempts prior to doing this, you're going to be demoralized. You're going to be weaker with a lower Aether pool. You're not going to be able to heal yourself as readily. You're going to be wasting pot shards. And it's going to be demoralizing to basically throw your head against the wall over and over for dozens of hours on end. But with that being said, I can now I've soloed up to a floor 193 on Palace of the Dead as of right now, out of 200, and on floor 94 out of 100 on Heaven on High. I have not done Eureka Orthos solo attempts, although I hear that that's easier in some ways. There's a lot more one-shot mechanics that all the monsters have, but at the same time, they're more scripted, so you can plan out where they're going to attack next. Other than that, Heaven on High is somewhat easier than Palace of the Dead, but it's really a different type of game. You know, the maps are a lot more narrow than the larger ones, so there's less kiting ability. So you might use Summoner and Warrior. Summoner as a DPS and Warrior as a tank, as opposed to Machinist in Palace of the Dead. It's probably the superior DPS. And so it's a bit harder to kite, but you know, the bosses are a lot easier in Heaven on High. And the monsters, there are fewer of them, but they hit harder. In Palace of the Dead, there are more monsters, they hit weaker, and the bosses are a lot harder. So with that being said, what I also suggest is watching Angelus, reading Midgey's guide in Angelus, and then I like Finn on YouTube. He goes by floor and describes which creatures are advantageous or not to attack, and gives advice on time saving and these sorts of things. But Angelus, Midgie, and Finn I see as the three main guide creators in the content creation space that'll help you with your deep dungeon solo experience. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm moon_rider, RYDR, on YouTube, Twitch TV. And I can definitely help you out with anything and run you through any of these dungeons. So take care.